How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with the Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about Creepshow, the TV show. This is Season 3, Episode 3, and this episode is entitled The Last Tsuburaya and Okay, I'll Bite. This is from 2021 and originally aired on Shudder. However, around Halloween each year, AMC airs these episodes on their channel, so that's pretty cool. The first story, The Last Tsuburaya, was directed by Jeffrey F. January and stars Brandon Quinn. The writing was actually done by Paul Dini and Stephen Langford. Always gotta point out when Paul Dini comes on this show. He did a lot of Batman the Animated Series. He's done a few episodes of Creepshow before, but he actually also wrote a story for the Creepshow comic book. Yeah, they made Creepshow into a real comic book, and Paul Dini wrote one of the stories. That's pretty fun. Anyway, the first story is about this guy who finds out he's the last descendant of a famous Japanese horror artist, and that he sealed his final piece in this crate to be given to his descendants 100 years after his death. However, a really rich guy comes in and buys it from him for $20 million under the condition that they don't open the crate and no one else sees it. He has a big unveiling party, and during this unveiling party, he commits an act of disrespect towards the piece. And of course, later that night, in classic anthology show fashion, art-based horror and monsters are going to get their revenge. The other story, Okay, I'll Bite, was directed by John Harrison, but not only did he direct it, he wrote the teleplay, and the teleplay is actually based on a short story of his. So really cool to see them give that guy that much control, you know? Short story, doing the teleplay, and then directing it. That's pretty cool. The episode stars Nick Massouh. In this episode, you get this guy who's in jail, but he's relatively innocent, and he's being forced to make drugs because he was a former pharmacist. However, they're not getting done in time, and there's a bit of a tension between the shady guard that runs this drug thing and him. However, he has a hobby. He collects spiders and studies their venom, which was really important when he was a pharmacist. He was breaking grounds with his venom research. Now that he's all alone in the prison cell, it's more of a hobby. However, one of his colleagues on the outside sends him a rare Egyptian manuscript denoting secret rites having to do with the spider, and if he can translate that, he might just get his chance for a paranormal revenge scheme against these drug dealers. Overall, classic anthology horror tropes, the good old villains get their comeuppance storyline. And I do want to say this episode is alright, but it's definitely a B episode, you know? They do enough good stuff, there's enough fun, wacky creatures and moments towards the end of these episodes, but there was nothing in here that really blew me away. I mean, there's one moment in the first story that was a really shocking moment, but other than that, nothing in here really wowed me. A lot of the stories, though, do go back to that classic pulp comic booky feel, and looking at them, you can definitely pick out the tropes. It is very tropey, and it is trying to give you the aesthetic that the show goes for, but I do wish there was a little bit more reinvention and a little bit more unexpectedness and originality. But here, you kind of get where these stories are gonna go pretty early on, and I just wish there was a little bit more push behind them. But I don't want to rag on them too hard. The stories are, as I said, fine, and the end bits do have some fun creepy creatures, some fun creep show moments. So it's a good episode, but it's definitely a B-side episode. Nothing too over the top, too crazy. I do wish it was pushed a little further, but I guess to analyze it, let's go ahead and talk a bit about each story. Now, that being said, I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers. I do want to say my piece on a few plot points, make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what the episode's about, but nothing from the end bits. Although that being said, it is tropey anthology horror. Not super surprising, the end bits, but there is some twist, you know, some stuff. Anyway, first story, The Last Tsuburaya. In this one, you get this guy. He's Asian American, and he works at a Best Buy, so he's not upper class or anything. He's just your average Joe. Well, he gets contacted from this museum person and a lawyer, and it turns out he is the last descendant of a famous Japanese horror artist that is pretty renowned, the title character Tsuburaya. And it turns out that his last painting, he sealed it up in a crate. No one has seen it but the artist. He put it in a crate, and it's been gone for a long time. They finally found it, and the instructions were, give this to my descendants 100 years after my death. So it's this average guy that's inherited a very, very valuable, unseen to the world painting, and they're talking to him about what to do with it. The museum person obviously would like to display it at their museum, but he doesn't really know, and before he can make up his mind, this rich guy barges in, and he clearly isn't supposed to be there, but he's gonna go in there anyway, and he's going to give the guy an offer. $20 million for the painting under the condition that it stays sealed, and he gets to be the one to open it. He gets to be the first to see this brand new classic painting. And, you know, $20 million, who could really turn that down? Now, that being said, if it is a really valuable painting, you maybe don't want to go for the very first offer. I mean, 20 million's a lot, even if you lost out on much more. You're not going to cry over 20 million, but I would probably want to shop it around if you want the absolute best price. However, the guy does point out that no one's seen this painting, we don't know what's inside of it, and the guy's known for painting horror, you know, monsters and spirits and stuff, but he also did work painting things like landscapes and flowers, and if it's one of those in there, no one's gonna care, and when you open it, if you see that, the value goes down. So it is kind of interesting, but still, probably shouldn't have sold it to the first guy that walked in. But whatever, who can blame him? He's got $20 million, and he's, I guess, the real winner in this story. But anyway, he takes it to his house and does a private showing, a private unboxing, if you will, and he has everybody off to one side and the easel displaying it towards him. So he's the only one that gets to see the painting at its very first glance. However, and I won't spoil it, I will just say he commits an act of disrespect in a really shocking move you don't see coming, and it's going to send a ripple through the crowd. And I have to say, it was a really unexpected moment, and when he later explains why he did this, it's an interesting idea, so it's definitely the highlight of the story. That being said, later on in the day, he's talking with this artist who he's patronizing and also sleeping with, but he's talking to her, and she's talking about art and the history and the importance of the piece and why he did what he did. And of course, classic anthology horror, classic Creepshow fashion, he is going to get a series of art-related scares, and a mysterious creature is going to haunt him. Overall, while the ending is fun enough, it's not the craziest and most intense we've seen Creepshow, but after the shocking moment, the act of disrespect, I kind of expected a little more from this story, and I really wish that there was some other reason or some other plot element, you know? It's just, yeah, here's the art ghost to, you know, show up and get their revenge, and I kind of wish that, you know, maybe there was, like, say, a warning on the crate that if he had paid attention he could have seen, or something more that we knew going into it about, you know, any sort of magical properties related to the piece. I just wish it was a little more complex and interesting, and as it stands, it's kind of a standard Creepshow revenge fare, which is overall fine, but when we got the beginning that we got with that shocking act of disrespect, I wish the follow-up was a little more interesting and different. As far as the finale, though, like I said, we have seen better. The choreography and the editing, not necessarily the best. I think at one point the guy gets, like, trapped in a closet, and he kind of makes his way out, and I'm like, how did he get out of the closet? The thing was right there. And also, why the creature, the main one, is a fun design. You do get to see him a little too well lit for a little too long, and it goes less from being scary to more being a fun monster movie with a guy in a rubber suit, which I guess isn't bad because it's cheesy Creepshow fun, but at the same time, yeah, you get to see this thing in the light a little bit too long, you know? So, overall, it's okay. And same with the second one. The second story is called Okay, I'll Bite, and we start off with a pretty good iconic first shot. It's a prisoner, and he's managed to remove one of the cinder blocks on the on his wall, and he's down there on the floor looking in at this giant, like, 18-inch spider and feeding it and caring for it. So yeah, him on the floor looking in through this hole, feeding a giant spider. A good hook image, and it starts off the episode pretty well. And then we get to find out more about this prisoner. He goes to his parole hearing, and we get to hear a bit of his backstory. Turns out, the reason why he's in here is his mother was dying of cancer, and he was a pharmacist, and because he was a pharmacist, he had access to all these drugs, and he decides to give his mother a quick and painless death rather than letting her suffer. So it was an act of mercy, but still, legally speaking, it was murder. So he's in here, but he's not a bad criminal guy. He's just made a judgment call that was illegal. So he's in this prison, and they're giving him a parole hearing, and it seems like he might get out, except they suspect that he poisoned another inmate, which of course he says he didn't do, and you think suspicion wouldn't be enough. You think they'd have to legally prove it, but I guess not. Maybe if he had a better lawyer. But they suspect him of poisoning another inmate, so no parole for him, and he has to stay in this prison, and we quite quickly find out why. This scumbag guard character is leading a prison drug ring, and he needs the pharmacist to make the drugs for him. Now, that being said, it kind of puts the character into a double prison situation. He's already trapped because he's in prison, but now he's even more trapped because he has to do what this guy says. And they might be paying him, but outside of that, like, doing this is literally putting him in prison for longer, and it seems like his main motivation to continue doing this is so that the other prisoners that are in this gang don't kill him, you know? So, not really a great positive reward for him. It's really screwing him over. And on top of all this, the drugs are coming out late. He says there's a problem with the supply line, he's not getting the stuff he needs, he'll get it, he just needs a little more time, and the other gang members are going to be cracking down on him. He's in a tight spot. But then we get the horror element. This guy is big into spiders. He was a pharmacist. He knows all about drugs and chemicals. He was studying what all benefits the spiders could give him, and apparently he was actually of some renown. And you get to see him with his spider, holding it like it's a pet. He has jars for them. It's his main spider and all these other spiders, and each of these spiders has a name, and all the names are different mythological creatures. So it kind of, A, he knows all the science, and B, introducing a bit of an element of mysticism early. Well, on top of all that, he has a colleague on the outside who tracked down a rare Egyptian parchment, and if he translates this parchment, we might be in for some spider-based revenge. So, again, overall, if you know anthology horror, you know where it's going. There are some pretty cool visuals, a fun final creature reveal that's a really good design, and overall I did like the spider sequences towards the end. Really fun stuff, and I think spiders are a pretty cool creature. And these are the bigger tarantula spiders. They look really nice. So I did like where this was going, but at the same time, it's a pretty classic anthology horror setup. Guy being screwed over, magical element. I think we all know where this is heading, and overall, it's fine. And like I said, I do like where it ends, but I just wish there were a few more twists and turns. I wish there was some sort of interesting reinvention of the concept, some newer idea. I mean, yeah, the spider lore is new, but I wish there was just a little bit more to make this unpredictable. So yeah, my critiques are, I guess, the same for both episodes. They're classic tropey stuff, and they do their job well enough, and it's not bad by any means, but it is just getting a little predictable, and why both reveals are fun, they don't quite go as over the top as I would want. So these are both fine episodes, but totally B-sides. They're the kind of thing where if you were to stumble across them later and remember them, you wouldn't feel bad about it, but you'd be like, oh yeah, the spider prison one, or oh yeah, the haunted art one, It's okay, and I prefer it better when they reinvent things just a little bit more. Just give us a little bit new stuff. But as it stands, it's the same old formula we love. Can't complain too hard. And they're fine, So anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You really are helping the channel out. I'll leave a relevant playlist on the bottom. This should be my Creepshow playlist. I've talked about all the previous episodes, so all of seasons 1 and 2, as well as 3-1 and 3-2, leading up to this, and hope to get to the rest later on. And also I talked about the new Creepshow comic. Yeah, they literally turned Creepshow into a real-life comic. It's really good. Image Comics put it out. Definitely recommend you tracking that down. And if you want to see more of it, my review for it will be in the playlist. Anyway, have a good day. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Creepshow playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.